The tent lay open to the night, canvas sliced from within, and a quiet procession of barefoot prints marched into the timberline, as if something outside was safer than the shelter they trusted. This is Dyatlov Pass, 1959, the nine who fled the tent. Walk with us into a night of biting wind and unanswered questions. We move from a slashed shelter to vanishing footprints, following the steps that became a riddle frozen into history. Students, skis, and a winter route. In early 1959, Igor Dyatlov, a driven engineering student from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, handpicked a group of fellow students and graduates for a challenging trek through the northern Ural Mountains. All were experienced in ski touring and mountaineering, drawn not just by the promise of physical endurance, but by a shared sense of adventure, comradeship, and the chance to earn a Grade 3 certification, the highest recognized in the Soviet outdoor sports system at the time. Their intended route led them deep into remote wilderness toward Mount Otorten, a peak sacred to the indigenous Mansi people. To reach it, they would pass near another summit, Kholat Syakhl. Translated from Mansi, its name means dead mountain, not for supernatural reasons, but reportedly because game seldom traveled there. Still, the name lingers with unsettling weight in hindsight. The group was well prepared by all contemporary standards. They carried a large, double-layered canvas tent designed to withstand harsh winds, portable stoves for melting snow and cooking, detailed diaries, and hand-drawn maps to log their progress. Each item had its place, packed with both precision and care. As was customary in the Soviet Union, Dyatlov filed an official travel plan, including expected return dates. It was a protective system. If a group failed to return on time, authorities would initiate a search. Photographs and journals recovered later show moments of warmth and camaraderie, even as the elements grew hostile. Skis lashed to heavy packs, faces smiling through frost. Songs shared within the warped fabric of a crowded tent. These were not naive adventurers. They were students of physics, radio engineering, civil construction, testing themselves against the raw winter. Shortly into the journey, one member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill and made the difficult decision to turn back. It became tragically a decision that saved his life. The remaining 9 carried on, their entries noting daily routines, meals, equipment repairs, and gradual progress through worsening conditions. February deepened. Temperatures plunged well below zero. The wind carved snow into razored ridges, and visibility could vanish in moments under a sudden whiteout. Silence. The last diary notes were mundane, filled with logistical details and quiet confidence. No hint of fear, no mention of unease, just ordinary reflections beneath extraordinary skies. What came next remains one of the most unsettling mysteries of the mountain wilderness. The torn tent, the scattered remains, none of it was foretold in their final cheerful snapshots. Only the snow remembers, and it's not telling. The tent and the footprints. When the Dyatlov group failed to send their expected telegram from Vizhai, days stretched into worry and then into action. Classmates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, together with instructors and local volunteers, formed impromptu search parties. Before long, the effort had drawn in Soviet military personnel, rescue dogs, and aerial support. The search led them high into the snow-shrouded Ural wilderness, to a desolate shoulder of Kholat Syakhl, a name the local Mansi people spoke with respect, Mountain of the Dead. On February 26, 1959, a search party spotted a curious patch of orange canvas poking through the snow. It was Dyatlov's tent, battered and partially collapsed, as though heavy wind or time had forced it down. Snow had built up around it in drifts, but it wasn't merely the weather that concerned investigators. They found the tent had been slashed open, not from the outside, but from within. The cuts were long and precise. It was as if someone inside had felt urgency, perhaps even desperation, and carved an escape through the very skin of their shelter. Inside, the scene struck a quiet, unsettling balance between chaos and order. Boots were still neatly lined near the entrance. Jackets and gear lay undisturbed. Journals and a camera rested as if their owners had stepped out only moments ago, expecting to return. but no one ever did. To the investigators' astonishment, a set of footprints led calmly away from the tent, traced like whispers in the snow. Some prints were bare, others covered only in socks or soft felt boots, a curious detail in temperatures that had plunged below -20. They didn't suggest panic. The stride was measured, deliberate. The trail carried searchers nearly a mile downhill, terminating near the edge of a wooded hollow. There, beneath a tall Siberian cedar, they found the remains of a small fire. Two bodies lay nearby, Krivonishenko and Doroshenko, dressed in only part of their clothing. Limbs were bruised and branches were snapped high in the tree above, as if one of them had climbed in darkness, reaching for something or trying to escape. Over the following days, bodies of Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin were discovered spaced out across the snowy slope, as if they had tried to return to the tent but failed, one by one succumbing to the brutal cold. The last 4 victims would not be found until May. Their bodies were buried beneath meters of compacted snow in a nearby ravine. Some were clothed in items scavenged from the others, suggesting desperate attempts to survive. Autopsy reports revealed wounds that confounded investigators: a fractured skull, crushed ribs, but no external injuries to match. The facts aligned clearly enough. A tent left in haste, tracks into the trees. A futile fire, frozen, remains staggered in the remnants of struggle and survival. And yet no single explanation has ever fit all the pieces. As more clues emerged, the certainty of what happened on that silent mountain only seemed to slip further out of reach. A night of decisions. Reconstructing that night means entering a landscape not just of snow and wind, but of fractured moments and choices made under duress. The hiker's tent, bright orange and clearly visible during the day, perched awkwardly on the eastern slope of Kolatsiakhl, a gentle incline swept bare by Siberian wind. According to expedition diaries recovered later, it wasn't their first night camping in the open, but it was perhaps their most exposed. Some accounts suggest that just after sunset, something shifted. A low rumble, the sound of snow settling, or even the imperceptible slide of a shallow slab, small but threatening. The 2019 avalanche study proposed that a rare combination of terrain, angle, and snowdrift could have formed an easily triggered pressure plate above the tent. That night, whether it was the weight of their own footsteps or the pressure of ambient wind, something may have compelled the group to act quickly. When rescuers found the tent weeks later, they noted long knife-like gashes along its wall, slashed from the inside. Soviet investigative files confirmed these were deliberate cuts made by people desperate to get out. The tent's entrance, likely crusted shut by snow or too slow to reach, became useless in that moment. In only socks and underclothes, they exited into a sub-zero wind that stripped breath and clarity in minutes. Together, or close to it, they moved downslope toward a sparse tree line roughly a kilometer away. There, they may have hoped for shelter from the wind or a chance to build a fire using wood from the trees. They managed the latter, a few broken branches and a shallow flame, but Soviet files noted that it burned only briefly. Charred bark and signs of frantic use surrounded the scene. 2 of the hikers were found closest to this fire, barefoot and motionless. Others had made the decision to climb back, perhaps to recover clothing or to reassess the safety of the tent. Dyatlov and 2 more were found midway between the forest and the tent, fallen in places that suggested they collapsed while crawling uphill. The final 4 were discovered later, deep within a ravine that bisected the forest floor. Snow had buried them under meters of compacted crystal and ice. When recovered, their injuries were severe: broken ribs, smashed skulls, with no cuts or external wounds to account for the trauma. Autopsy reports from 1959 describe it as being hit by a car or crushed by a massive force. The hollow they fell, and perhaps crawled into, was likely formed by a hidden stream bed. If that cavity collapsed with them inside, it could explain the injuries without invoking violence. Each piece of the night falls into place logically, a reaction to environmental cues, a series of difficult decisions unfolding under pressure. but as a chain of events, it resists resolution. Something doesn't quite lock into certainty. The tent, the fire, the ravine, each is a fragment of a night still clouded by drifts of mystery, even decades later. Files, findings, and a phrase. From February through May of 1959, a team of Soviet investigators worked against weather, time, and mystery. Prosecutors, rescue leaders, and forensic examiners trudged into the northern Urals, collecting what they could before the mountains swallowed more clues. They captured black and white photographs, bleak snowscapes dotted with equipment and bodies, and compiled meticulous reports that might explain what had gone so terribly wrong. The autopsies accounted for each of the 9 young hikers. 6 of the deaths were attributed to hypothermia, consistent with exposure to the brutal cold. But 3 stood apart. Those hikers bore severe internal injuries, crushed ribs, fractured skulls, yet with no external wounds to match. Examiners noted the trauma resembled impact forces more commonly associated with car crashes or high falls. There was no evidence of a struggle, no signs of another group's involvement, and no tracks but their own. Another confounding detail surfaced in the fabric of their clothing. Traces of radiation, detectable but not extreme, appeared on some garments. Theories followed. Later, researchers suggested the isotopes likely stemmed from lantern mantles or routine industrial exposure. Several group members had backgrounds in sciences and engineering. Yet in the atmosphere of Cold War suspicion, such anomalous readings fanned unease. The tent, central to everything, lay half-collapsed on the snow, slashed open from the inside. Ski poles had braced it against wind, as described in the hikers' final diary entries. Their route matched a plan: camp on the slope of Kholat Syakhl, the mountain of the dead. But why they fled, ill-dressed, barefoot into sub-zero night, remained unanswered. When authorities closed the file in May, they offered only a single haunting phrase: an unknown compelling force. Those words have echoed ever since, etched into every retelling of the Dyatlov Pass mystery. Decades later, with the rise of renewed public interest and freedom of information, Russian prosecutors reopened the case. In 2019, they commissioned modern reviews of snow mechanics and atmospheric data. According to the 2020 conclusions, conditions that night, strong downslope winds, poor visibility, and a delayed slab avalanche, may have spurred a panicked escape. The hikers, they posited, were driven out by natural forces, not unnatural ones. But even with that well-modeled scenario, uncertainty lingered. The mountain still held onto its silence. And for many, the question remained, was that explanation enough? What could move 9 people into the dark? In the decades since that bitter February night, theories have accumulated like layers of snow on the mountainside, each attempting to explain why 9 experienced hikers tore their way out of their tent and cob, headed into the black, frozen wilderness. One of the most rigorously modeled explanations is the avalanche hypothesis. According to a 2019 scientific study, a slab of snow, subtle, invisible, but deadly, might have shifted after a nocturnal change in wind or pressure. The team's tent was pitched on a gentle slope, possibly in a lee area prone to hard slab formation. A delayed collapse could have sent heavy snow pressing against the side of the tent, triggering panic. The explorers, fearing a full avalanche, may have cut their way out to escape. Critics, however, point to the shallow slope and the calm, deliberate trail of footprints leading away as indications that no sudden, chaotic event took place. The snow around the tent had not visibly shifted when rescuers arrived. Another proposal invokes katabatic wind, cold, dense air flowing downward under gravity's pull. In rare configurations, such winds can gain violent force, sweeping down the mountainside like an invisible avalanche. Tents have been flattened and people driven to desperate flight in similar recorded incidents elsewhere. With visibility lost and the world reduced to a howling void, fleeing downslope toward the forest might have seemed like the only hope. Still, the wind that night, according to both weather records and testimonies from Mansi herders, was not recorded as being especially fierce. Then there is the strange suggestion of infrasound, low-frequency vibrations triggered by winds passing around the surrounding peaks. These sounds can reportedly induce feelings of unease, panic, or physical discomfort in some individuals. As eerie as the idea of unseen sound waves influencing human behavior might be, this theory remains elusive. There is little direct evidence that such frequencies were present or would lead cohesive groups to act so uniformly irrationally. Some particularly unsettling ideas come from the possibility of military testing in the region. Nighttime aerial activity, parachute mines, or accidental exposure to ordnance tests were considered, possibly encouraged by reports of glowing lights in the sky and accounts of strangely severe injuries on some of the bodies. Yet archival military records from the era are sparse, redacted, or ambiguous. No definitive link has been drawn. Investigators in 1959 briefly considered the involvement of local Mansi people, given the area's traditional significance. But interviews and on-site examinations found no signs of struggle, violence, or territorial dispute. The Mansi themselves aided in the search efforts. That suspicion, investigators concluded, was unfounded. Within the mystery, subtler behavioral details raise questions. The so-called paradoxical undressing, where hypothermia victims remove their clothes in confusion, may explain missing garments. Yet survivors in extreme conditions are also known to share clothing among the dying and the living in final acts of endurance. Not all choices made in mortal cold are irrational. Across all these possibilities, one fact remains: each theory offers a partial glimpse. Like shadows cast by a lantern swinging in storm dark, none fully account for everything found at Dyatlov Pass. The enigma resists resolution, not for lack of answers, but for the way each answer leaves new questions echoing through the snow. Names in frost, lessons in wind. The high, snow-locked pass where they vanished was nameless before 1959. Now it bears the name Dyatlov, less a tribute than a quiet marker of absence. Not far from the institute where their journey began, a stone memorial stands among dark pines, etched with 9 names and the silence they left behind. In the years that followed, families pressed officials for clarity. Grief moved into paperwork, then into the margins of censored files. As the story filtered through decades, amateur historians and mountaineering enthusiasts around the world began to sift through fragmented archives. Translations circulated. Torn photographs were scanned, enlarged, debated. The myth turned into a jigsaw of documents. Soviet investigative files, autopsy reports, diary entries. Slowly, what had once passed as rumor found root in record. Still, the trail never quite cooled. Travelers continued to cross the Ural ridges, drawn less by answers than by a quiet need to walk the same snow. They pause at the lone cedar tree, pace out the gaps where footprints once pressed briefly into drifted silence. Some test distances themselves, gauging breath, battling frostbite with thin jackets, to judge the limits of human will. In 2019, Russian prosecutors reopened the case. A scientific review, drawing on updated avalanche dynamics and expedition logs, leaned toward natural explanations. The final report cited slab avalanches, wind pressure, and hypothermia. According to the findings, the panic, the torn tent, the spread footprints, each had a plausible physical cause. Yet for many, that conclusion brought framework, not finality. The story refuses to rest. More than mystery, it has become guidance. Mountain safety courses invoke the Dyatlov Pass to teach planning beyond intention, understand snowpack stress, anticipate wind-forming drifts, chart escape paths. Know that night comes fast, and comfort can disappear in a gust. The 9 are remembered not as icons of the unsolved, but as young people who laughed, argued over rations, mended boots, and scribbled verses into the corners of notebooks. Their final journey threads through memory and caution and winter itself, and continues as each new question finds its way back to the ridge. The pattern we cannot quite read. Perhaps the mountain didn't keep a secret. Perhaps it simply rearranged moments until no one could tell the story straight. A folded series of events, stacked and weather-worn, until the shape of what happened blurred just beyond recognition. Winter in the Urals does not forgive hesitation. Survival demands not just experience, but the rarest kind of clarity, under pressure, in isolation, against time and cold. Even the best trained stumble. Even seasoned hikers like Dyatlov's group can make one miscalculation and pay for it in silence. Yet their passage left an outline. The slashed tent opened from the inside. Bare-socked footprints stepping away in a slow, scattered rhythm. A fire fought for with frozen hands. Branches broken high above the snow line where two bodies lay beneath, and others fallen on the line of return. Each detail feels almost unbearably human up close. Decisions made in minutes, maybe seconds, under panic or freezing logic. From further back, these same markers shift. They become something less about error or explanation and more like etchings in ice, a record of people against landscape, choice against chance. And somewhere between these perspectives, we are left tracing a puzzle that won't resolve. Not fully. The avalanche studies, the pressure wave theories, even the diaries and forensic files, they offer fragments. But no verdict settled in certainty. We walk that narrow line between empathy and investigation, knowing that the deeper mystery may not lie in what happened. It may lie in our need to know, because on that mountain, humility became visible in tracks across snow, and in the way the cold held its silence. What remains is not just a story unfinished. It is a pattern we can no longer quite read. You have been listening to Dyatlov Pass, 1959, The Nine Who Fled the Tent, a chapter from Nightmare Nook. If this cold trail drew you in, subscribe and return with us soon. The next path waits beyond the tree line.